This year has been a great year to go back to the theater. For too long, comic book movies have been dominating the box office, which has pushed me to sitting at home and rewatching The Simpsons on repeat.
So many previews, so many previews, so many previews.
And now, our feature presentation.
With the superhero movie starting to become more unprofitable, the tides are shifting back to more mature films packing the theater. Not that superhero movies are not profitable or good, but it seems that a large chunk of them are being streamed instead of playing at the theater. There's only so much money you can really get from these movies, and every Marvel movie being several $100 million was bound to fail eventually. Even movies that do well are not enough to turn a huge profit anymore. And when much of the plot is being told over several TV shows and straight to Disney Plus movies, people are checking out. In the past few years, I maybe went to the theater twice in any given year. This year I've seen Late Night with the Devil, Monkey Man, Furiosa, Challengers, and Dune 2. While I enjoyed all of them, only one movie has really stuck with me in a major way.
I saw the TV glow I am in the 8th grade, sending grown and grainy photos of my rib cage.
While watching the film, I was struck by how personal the film appeared to be to my childhood in a lot of ways. I was taken by late night television and never really felt connected to people in any meaningful way. I would use television and movies to connect with people by often quoting the shows I was watching rather than talk to people as myself. While I was more extroverted than the main characters, I was typically using humor to mask feelings of depression, although I didn't really know that that's what it was at the time. I was very aware of life at a horrifyingly young age. I did not take life for granted in the ways that other people did. I did not have high hopes for my life growing up, and I didn't chase girls. I didn't take risks that I felt were unnecessary. In 3rd grade, our teacher asked us to write in an envelope where we would be as adults, and when we leave the 5th grade, those letters would be returned to us and we can see what we wrote. They mentioned that these letters would be sealed in envelopes so we can be as honest as we want. I wrote something down and forgot about it. In the last week of 5th grade, I got my letter back, and it said something to the effect of, "I'll be working in a cubicle writing 'kill me' over and over again. When someone walks by, I'll quickly delete it." The picture was me at a computer with the words "kill me" written on the screen. I wasn't old enough to understand what this feeling was called, but I knew it wouldn't be acceptable to talk about with other people. I quickly hid it and eventually destroyed it. I coped with my stress, anxiety, and depression in the soft glow of the TV, staying up late on weekends and over the summer watching everything I could, catching up with my friends on the TV to see what wacky hijinks they can get into this week. I even started watching TV shows from the 70s like Three's Company because I had watched all the modern shows so many times that I memorized them. As I got older, I could no longer escape those feelings and fell into despair, often wishing that I was dead and afraid to talk to someone about it. My friend group dwindled and I became more focused on myself. Life just seemed to be something that happened while my entire being was stuck somewhere in the back of my mind. Like I was someone from Being John Malkovich that was inside his head. It took a long time, but I'm happy to report that I'm doing much better in life and I don't have these thoughts and feelings very often anymore. I only wanted to share this because I think that if the movie is going to be a personal journey, that I should share mine in turn. All that being said, what the hell's going on in this movie?
That looks like the best book ever.
Yeah, it is.
That's like the TV show, right? The Pink Opaque?
If you wanted, I could come over again.
Do you remember me?
I even got a family of my own. I think that I like TV shows.
It's a movie about life in the suburbs, which is generally boring. Work, eat, sleep. We follow Owen, who sees an ad for a television show that comes on late at night, a show that intrigues him, but it comes on too late, and because of that he's never seen it. One day, there was an election happening, and the school had voting booths for residents of the county to come and vote, and he was brought there by his mother. Too young to vote, but he could at least see democracy in action. Obviously, that shit's boring to an 11-year-old, so he wanders off to find a girl named Maddie sitting alone reading a book about the show he wanted to watch, The Pink Opaque. He finds Maddie later and asks her about the book. She explains the plot of the show and shows him some of the pictures from the book. It's a compendium of the whole show thus far. Plot, behind-the-scenes stuff, etc. He's upset that he can't watch the show, but she asks him to come over for a viewing with her friend. He lies to his parents, says he's sleeping over at his friend's house, but goes over to see Maddie. After watching his first episode, he becomes enamored with it and wants to watch it every week. 2 years go by while Maddie tapes the episodes and drops them off around the school for him to pick up and watch on his own. He watches those shows on repeat and asks his parents if he can stay up late to watch the show on his own, but they still won't let him. He finds Maddie and asks her if he can come over again. And after watching another episode, Maddie tells him that she's running away and asks if he wants to come with her, but he refuses. She leaves and 8 more years go by and Owen is working at a movie theater. Maddie finds him while he's shopping and tells him that their memory of the show is not what it once was. Something is happening and tells him to watch the last episode of season 5. He goes home to rewatch the show and the content has become so much darker. The main antagonist captures the heroes and places them in a trance, takes out their heart and buries them alive. What's more is that inside the snow globe the main villain of the show is holding, Owen is a child watching the show. Owen attempts to go inside the TV but fails. Maddie tells him to meet up later and she explains that she's actually one of the main characters from the show. She attempted to kill herself by burying herself alive the same way that the character in the show was. Only she managed to crawl out of the grave, and that's how she realized that the world they currently inhabit is part of the trance that the main villain placed them under. She offers Owen the same help. She dug a grave for him and has been prepared, but Owen runs away from the grave and lives the rest of his life working menial jobs and never experiences all that life has to offer. Despite marrying and having kids, he still stays up late and watches television alone. He has a mental breakdown at work one day in his 60s and calls out for his long-dead mother. He apologizes to everyone and tries to make an excuse as everyone ignores him. A sad story about Owen's friend who was driven mad by depression and paranoia. It's also a very boring movie on paper. Owen lives his life the best way he can, but never allows himself to feel the weight of life pressing down on him. And only in the end does he have a moment of catharsis for his mother as he thinks about his own impending death. But, now, what if Maddie was right? I mean, it's a wild idea that their reality is just some spell placed on them by their real antagonist, Mr. Melancholy. I mean, the movie doesn't actually support that theory, right? Right?
Sometimes the pink opaque feels more real than real life. Do you remember a TV show we used to watch together? Do you remember it as just a TV show? Just like I was waking up from a bad dream. That whole life. That whole reality where I was Maddie Wilson. Drifted away.
There are several moments in the movie that do make you wonder if what we're actually watching is the season 6 premiere of the Pink Opaque. How did our feisty teenage warriors get out of this jam? It can be thought of like one of those Soprano episodes where Tony is walking through a dream for most of the runtime. It makes you wonder what is real and what isn't because most of the dreaming is obvious, but sometimes it just seems as real as anything else.
If I had an ounce of self-respect, I would cut your dick off!
You never...
No. Frankly, I think I've said enough about it. I never threatened to cut your dick off.
The most obvious is all the sources of glow coming from the environment. The warm glow of the television, the vibrant glow from the fish tank, the sterile glow of incandescent light bulbs, the intense blue glow of a downed power line, etc. It evokes the feeling of being watched. Like how you watch television, the environment is watching them. This is punctuated by imagery of eyes throughout the movie. Several scenes have what appear to be eyes following our main characters, the oddly white washer screwy things on the jet black soda machine like eyes in the dark watching them as kids, the eyes of the father staring at his child, the picture on the wall where the mother is blocked by the lamp so all we can see is the father looming over all, which symbolizes Maddie's trauma around her father. The bar singer's eyes faintly glow red only for a second while our heroes are in the audience, and their aesthetic is very similar to Mr. Melancholy's minions. The constellations given form during Maddie's monologue are creatures in the sky watching over us all like the main antagonist is the man in the moon. A face inside the moon looking down. We are gazing into the abyss and it's gazing back.
It's on for you, brother. Come on, man. Hey, why don't you look at me, please? Just make eye contact with me. Seriously.
The movie opens by moving down a street, the street with the pink chalk and the ghost symbol our heroes sport on the back of their necks, while at the end of the street an ice cream truck sits. The same ice cream truck from the show, and the kids on the street talking about ice cream are seated only inches away from that pink chalk on the street outside that looks identical to the pattern on the street we started on. When Owen pulls over to a downed power line, there are pages from the Pink Opaque guide that Maddie had at the beginning of the movie. However, that show would only have been on season 3 by the time they made the book, as the season 5 premiere took place 2 years later. However, when Owen picks up a page from the ground, it outlines the Season 6 premiere, but it doesn't offer any details, a possible message from beyond this realm. When Maddie leaves for good, messages start to appear for Owen, who promptly ignores them, or is so invested in his own reality he can't see them, like the chalk on the street saying it's not too late, or the message on the money booth saying you are dying. Intrusions from another world keep seeping into his reality, but due to his choice to remain, he can no longer see or hear them. His fate is sealed. Even revisiting the Pink Opaque on Netflix years later, the show is not what it used to be, but he goes along with it thinking he must have misremembered it. An interesting twist is that Owen narrates portions of the movie and looks directly into the camera. When Maddie returns, she asks if he has trouble remembering the past, as if he's only narrating it. This feels more in tandem with watching a childish TV show, rather than an earnest film about this man. Maddie calling attention to this highlights that something is wrong with Owen. There is something going on that he can't explain or understand, but Maddie can see it in him because she has the same problems. When Maddie and Owen are talking about their sexuality, Owen describes his depression as feeling as though someone has taken a shovel and hollowed him out from inside. He said this before the Season 5 finale aired, and as we find out, Mr. Melancholy removed their hearts and buried them alive, slowly suffocating. In Owen's midlife, he experiences asthma, which causes him to have shortness of breath and a wheeze. This continues until he's an old man. He watches a child in one of those money booths, but it's filmed from an angle that suggests a coffin, and when Owen is in the bathroom after his breakdown, lunar juice is in the sink as he cuts himself open, discovering the glow from a television inside. One can reasonably interpret the movie as a literal Season 6 premiere of the Pink Opaque, but what does this all mean? Are we watching a lame show meant for kids? Or...
Seems like you're always somewhere else lately.
Just be out by dawn. If my stepdad catches you, he'll break my nose again.
I know there's something wrong with me. My parents know it too, even if they don't say anything.
I'm getting out of this town. I'll die if I stay here. I don't know how exactly, but I know it's true.
I love a movie that can engage with a metaphor for longer than a few minutes. It's kind of risky and polarizing when you spend an entire movie that's about something else, because people who don't get it will probably hate your movie for being too pretentious, or will argue that the fact that they didn't get it means that the metaphor wasn't done well. This is a great movie to tackle because it can expose a lot about your own personal feelings and beliefs about it, and that's what makes art so exciting to me. To me, this movie was downright Lynchian in how it presents the suburbs, only more grounded in a different way. While Lynch expresses the horrors of people separated from larger society and the kind of strange socialization that occurs, I mean, that's me dumbing it down to an incredibly ignorant degree. I Saw the TV Glow is more about how societal norms of small-town suburbia itself is what's horrifying. These people are raised to be like this, and the sort of existential terror that comes from trying to rebel against something more intangible than your parents. Maddie running away from home didn't change her depression or feelings of alienation. It was only through a spiritual death that she evolved. That idea is so much more terrifying. It's not just sacrificing a relationship to attain some form of peace, it's about destroying a part of yourself to become something new, something better. Maddie realizing that her reality is a lie is honest, but sometimes the truth looks like madness, as any Lovecraftian horror fan can attest. What does this all mean though? What is the movie trying to say? To me, in my first viewing, this movie was about the anxieties of life in suburbia and small towns, the existential dread of living a life of safety, but in that safety you give up your individuality, joy, self-discovery, etc. Settle into a boring life where the best you can hope for is a family to pass your legacy off and hope that they can do better. Throughout the movie, Maddie and Owen struggle with their own depression as their parents don't seem to understand them and don't want to.
Well, I'm passing out.
Are you sure it's okay that I sleep down here?
Just be out by dawn. If my stepdad catches you, he'll break my nose again.
They find the Pink Opaque is their only true outlet, a power fantasy where they are free to be themselves. Their lives start passing them by faster and faster until Maddie can't take it anymore and runs away. Owen is too afraid and decides to stay behind, where he works menial jobs and gets nowhere in life, still living with his disapproving father. Even when his mother passes away, he feels nothing. Life keeps coming by in waves and he refuses to move. Going back to the conversation about feeling hollowed out, Owen explains that he understands that there's something wrong with him, and if he tells his parents, they will know that something is wrong with him, and he's afraid to let them in. He loves his mother, but will not share the truth with her, either because of guilt, because of what she's going through, he doesn't want to dump that on her, or because he's afraid to confront these feelings. However, that means he can never be himself to his own family. His father certainly wouldn't understand or care. His father seems almost contemptuous of his son, shooting him down when he expresses his desire to watch his favorite TV show.
Can I stay up late to watch the Pink Opaque tonight?
What time does it come on?
10:30 p.m.
You know your bedtime is at 10:15.
Isn't that a show for girls?
Not tonight, honey.
Getting older and realizing you never truly lived is horrifying. Denying who you are to accommodate other people is really sad, and I think people who live in suburbia can relate to that. Suburban communities are very exclusive and intolerant of individuality for the most part. People's lives are tied up to their property value. Do anything to make those values drop and you're in trouble. Especially ones with a homeowners association that will fine you for not watering your lawn even though it's the summer and there's a drought. Human life is worth less than the home that's housing them. Maddie's decision to run away to escape her small town is dramatic, but it is something that happens. In fact, a lot of small towns are dealing with issues of an aging population and not enough young people to help maintain those towns. Typically, the youth take jobs in those towns that are in the service sector or to take up positions that help the youth, like coaches, YMCA workers, first responders, etc. With kids leaving the nest earlier and earlier to head off to college in large cities, these small towns are starting to suffer financially, which will only make the problem worse. It can be even worse in communities that are important to our agricultural needs. Farms are usually family run, and if enough of the kids move away, they may not be able to hand the reins to someone else, or they might get too old to effectively run the farm anymore. Owen only takes the jobs that are available to someone with his education level and a lack of charisma, which is low-level jobs in the service industry. Although he can make a financial living doing this, it doesn't afford him the ability to truly live. He tells the audience that he has a wife and kids, but they're never seen. He stays up late to watch television alone, and I can attest that I experienced this as well. When I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with my partner, I felt like I was making it in the world. I felt like I was accomplishing what I was supposed to do, but I was still depressed. Sometimes I would just leave my home and walk around for hours because I needed to get out. There was an anxiety in me that I couldn't express that prevented me from sleeping, and I felt like the movie was able to show that anxiety and depression very well. I can be mistaken as just being lazy, which is how my family saw it, but it was because some days I just couldn't leave the house. As time speeds up in the movie, we get a little snapshot of what life is like for someone who fails to live their dreams. They live a different kind of dream, the American dream, house, family, steady job. It's not a bad way to live, but for Owen, it's not right. My first viewing reflected an honest perspective of the anxiety and depression I felt growing up, not knowing where I belong or what the boundaries of my life are. As powerful as that was, on rewatch, I realized the most obvious interpretation of all.
Do you ever get confused? Like, maybe the memory isn't quite right? I told you that's not my name. What about you? Do you like girls?
I don't know.
Boys? It's like the school gets transformed into something else, you know? It's special.
The writer and director of the film, Jane Schubert, is a trans woman and has said that the film is about them growing up trans in a small town.
Jane, what was your initial inspiration for this film?
Being trans but not knowing it, stuck in the suburbs in the 1990s, watching a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and not realizing that the fact that I wished I could live in that show instead of in reality meant that I was really queer.
This makes so much sense. I will go into detail, but I want to state right off the bat that I am not trans, nor do I speak for the trans community. Any observations I make are purely based on my lackluster knowledge and understanding on the topic. If you are curious about the trans experience, there are links in the description to people who I follow who can speak more eloquently about this topic. I will also be referring to Owen using he/him pronouns because the major tragedy of the film is Owen's fear of transitioning, keeping him in the closet forever. The first major detail that most people will notice is that Owen is constantly speaking in falsetto. This seems unusual, especially given that the actor has a very naturally deep voice.
Like when we're younger, we're often looking for references for our own identity, and he becomes obsessed with the show because I'm trying to not give anything away, but he sees himself in it.
I need to ask you something first.
Okay. What do you need to ask me?
It felt like a strange choice, but given layer 2 of this movie it makes sense because Owen is one of the female leads in the Pink Opaque, but given this new context, it makes sense that inside Owen is actually a woman. His voice is betraying him, a whimper desperate to be heard, desperately wanting to come out, but always suppressed, hidden and buried just like the characters from the show. When Maddie comes back and talks about their memories, Owen suddenly starts blurring memories from the show with things that he did, including one scene where Owen is wearing a dress and gives one of the only genuine smiles of the film. Feeling at home literally coming out to Maddie, who loves and supports him, in stark contrast to his father, who seems to ooze contempt from the sight of him. Fear of being disowned keeps him from embracing himself, and I think a lot of people who are trans, and even people who are gay, understand this situation intimately. The metaphor of transitioning only comes from death. It feels depressing, but it makes sense. In the trans community, when transitioning, most people will choose a new name. When someone references their original name pre-transition, it's called dead naming. Owen becoming afraid and running away is devastating because he is too afraid to transition and rejects it. We then see the rest of his life pass by, doing everything he's supposed to do, get a steady job, get a house, get a family, but no matter how much he achieves the American dream, there is always something missing. Near the end of his life, we see him at that birthday party where he had a breakdown, and now there's a new meaning. Never having transitioned and running away from it his whole life, he suddenly has a realization that he's dying, and he has lived someone else's life. In the final moments in the bathroom, cutting himself open to see that glow from inside, that beautiful and radiant part of himself still alive, untouched, waiting. He again refuses to embrace it and apologizes to everyone for having the audacity to have emotions and walks away yet again. It's upsetting to see the film from this angle because we see what is missing and what could have been. A lot of movies who have similar stories will have the main character attempt to make change in their life. It's almost always seen as a positive. Follow your bliss, be your true self. We get to see what happens to someone who continually refuses the call to adventure, an anti-heroic arc. By the end, your character has changed, but everyone else remains the same. In I Saw the TV Glow, we see our hero be just like everybody else, trying to fade into the background when they're destined for so much more. If you haven't watched the movie and it sounds like something you're interested in, give it a watch. It's a challenging film that I think a lot of people should experience.